Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. I do not agree with the decision. She's right. It's the wrong decision. She hasn't quite done her homework because the decision in question was taken under the last government, according to the legal framework for the last government. But, Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. It should be Parliament that makes the rules.
Mr. Speaker, he did not answer the question. If
Starmer knows political fights, but Westminster witnessed something on a whole new scale. In mere hours, his attempt to shift blame over a contentious immigration case spectacularly backfired. Instead of silencing critics, he faced a sharp, public rebuke from the nation's top judge, Baroness Sucka. In Britain's unwritten rules, the judiciary speaks through rulings, not statements, and her direct response marked a serious breach, not just of etiquette but of constitutional boundaries. By claiming the courts had undermined immigration policy, Starmer crossed a line even the most combative predecessors had largely avoided, exposing him to both legal scrutiny and political fallout.
the Conservative government established the Ukraine Family Scheme, and in total, over 200,000 Ukrainians, mostly women, children and the elderly, have found sanctuary in the UK from Putin's war. However, a family of 6 from Gaza have applied to live in Britain using this scheme, and a judge has now ruled in their favour. This is not what the scheme was designed to do. This decision is completely wrong. It cannot be allowed to stand. Is the government planning to appeal on any points of law? And if so, which ones?
The confrontation revolved around the separation of powers, the fragile trust between government and judiciary, and whether the Prime Minister's political instincts were starting to override the legal principles he once championed. At the center was a Palestinian family of 6 from Gaza, whose home had been destroyed in conflict, with relatives in the UK ready to provide shelter and support. They applied through the Ukraine Family Scheme, not because they were Ukrainian, but because the Home Office offered no other viable online route. After reviewing the case, a British judge ruled in their favour, basing the decision squarely on existing human rights protections approved by Parliament. The ruling was not a loophole or technicality. It emphasized that this was an exceptional circumstance, unlikely to set a precedent for mass migration.
We allow enormous numbers of people to exploit our laws in this way. There are millions of people all around the world in terrible situations. We cannot help them all, and we certainly cannot bring them all here. Will he commit to bringing forward that new legislation or amending his borders bill?
Prime Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, I've already said the Home Secretary has already got her team working on closing this loophole. We don't need to wait for that. We're getting on with that because we're taking control. They lost control of immigration. We had nearly 1 million people come into this country, had an open borders experiment. On a Monday of this week, they voted against increased powers to deal with those that are running the vile trade of people smuggling. Same old Tories, open borders, empty promises.
Once the case reached Parliament, all nuance disappeared. Starmer cast it as a mistake, claiming the scheme was being exploited and implying that judges were part of the problem. What had been a lawful ruling became a political flashpoint, igniting a clash that was inevitable. In the Commons, he didn't simply disagree, he declared the judgment wrong and demanded its reversal, tying it directly to immigration policy and insisting that it was Parliament, not the courts, that had the final say over who could enter the country.
He'd be able to answer some questions. Given this crazy decision and so many others, new legislation is needed to clarify the right to a family life in Article 8. I'm not talking about what he just said. I know Labour MPs don't understand much of what they're saying, but the Prime Minister literally wrote a book on the European Convention on Human Rights. This is a situation where we need to put our national interest before the ECHR. Does he agree that we should legislate even if lawyers warn that this might be incompatible with human rights law?
She complains about scripted answers and questions. Her script doesn't allow her to listen to the answer.
Prime Minister.
She asked me if we're going to change the law and close the loophole in question 1. I said yes. She asked me again in question 2, and I said yes. She asked me again in question 3. It's still yes.
Mr. Speaker, he didn't.
Starmer's framing had immediate consequences. First, it misrepresented a ruling grounded in human rights law, not a manipulation of the Ukraine scheme. Second, it implied the judge had strayed into politics, a serious charge under the UK's constitutional system. By raising the issue in Parliament, he amplified criticism and lent it legitimacy, turning a legal matter into a public attack on judicial independence. That's when Baroness Succa intervened. Senior judges rarely respond directly to political attacks, but she issued a statement, held a press conference, and wrote to Starmer and the Lord Chancellor with a clear message: leadership must protect judicial independence. She warned that inflammatory rhetoric erodes public trust and exposes judges, who cannot defend themselves like politicians, to online harassment, leaked personal details, and even physical attacks, including one judge assaulted with a radiator. Her unprecedented response signaled that this was no ordinary policy dispute. It was a constitutional warning.
I asked if he would appeal the decision. He did not answer that. He's not listening. He's too busy defending the international human rights law framework. Mr. Speaker, this case has arisen because a Palestinian came to the UK from Gaza in 2007. He is now a British citizen. This is precisely why we need to break the conveyor belt from arriving in the UK to acquiring indefinite leave to remain, and then a British passport, and now a right to bring 6 family members here as well. Just last week, the Prime Minister bizarrely claimed that a British passport was not a pull factor for those coming to the UK. Will he now support our plans to toughen the process on indefinite leave to remain and make getting a British passport a privilege, not a right?
Prime Minister.
Speaker, they presided over record high levels of immigration. It reached nearly 1 million. It was a one-nation experiment in open borders. And she was the cheerleader. She was the one campaigning for more people to come and thanking her own side when they thwarted her campaign. So before she lectures us, I think she needs to reflect on her own record here.
By portraying the Gaza family ruling as a mistake that needed overturning, Starmer risked stoking public hostility toward the judiciary. This wasn't a debate over immigration policy. It was a move that threatened to erode trust and make judges' work more dangerous. Starmer built his career defending the rule of law, as a human rights lawyer and later as Director of Public Prosecutions, fiercely protecting judicial independence and condemning politicians who undermined it. Yet now, in power, he has deployed the very tactics he once denounced, turning a lawful judgment into a political tool. The Gaza case offered a chance to appear tough on immigration, but in doing so, he compromised the system he once championed, prompting a stark question: were his past principles genuine, or merely convenient positions? The shift is undeniable, giving critics ammunition and dividing voters, appealing to those who want a hard line on borders, while alienating anyone who values the separation of powers and expects the Prime Minister to respect judicial independence. The gamble may boost short-term support, but it comes at the cost of credibility, leaving a former defender of rights exposed as a politician willing to sacrifice principle for political advantage.
He is the Prime Minister now. The people out there want to know what he is going to do about the situation. He needs to spend less time whining about the last government and do his job. I thought, Mr. Speaker, that the Prime Minister and I both agreed that Israel had a right to defend herself. Yet the judge in this case noted that the family were facing a humanitarian crisis, and I quote, as a consequence of the Israeli government's indiscriminate attempts to eliminate Hamas, and government lawyers accepted this. Is the Prime Minister allowing lawyers to change the position on Israel? And was this because of advice from the Attorney General? And if not, why on earth did government lawyers accept the argument that Israeli actions were indiscriminate?
Prime Minister.
They put the complete opposite argument. She talks about on top of her brief. She has no idea what she's talking about. I'll tell her.
In trying to project strength, Starmer has opened himself to a narrative of inconsistency, one that could undermine trust across his leadership. Public reaction is divided. Some see decisive action on immigration, while others view it as a reckless assault on a fundamental democratic safeguard. Criticism from Baroness Sucka, with no history of political grandstanding, carried exceptional weight, and media coverage highlighted her intervention as a rare moment the judiciary openly challenged the Prime Minister. If similar disputes emerge, this episode could mark a deeper pattern, shaping perceptions of his legacy. The clash also reflects a broader trend in Starmer's governing style, frequently adjusting positions to suit the political climate, projecting strength on immigration, defense, and foreign policy. The Gaza family ruling laid bare the tension at his core, the human rights lawyer turned prime minister framing a lawful court decision as an obstacle, balancing pragmatism for allies against principled compromises for critics. The confrontation goes far beyond a single case. It strikes at the heart of the UK's constitutional balance, showing how undermining judicial independence can erode public trust and weaken the separation of powers. Baroness Sucka's intervention served as a sharp reminder that independence depends on politicians respecting limits. Whether Starmer takes that warning seriously will determine if this was an isolated storm or the start of a troubling pattern. The Gaza family case may fade from headlines, but the clash endures as a benchmark for how far a prime minister can challenge the courts. For Starmer, it was a lesson that political gains carry constitutional costs. For the judiciary, proof that it will defend the system when required. The choice is stark: uphold democratic principles or risk eroding them for short-term advantage.